Welcome once again, my brothers and my sisters. Ancient Egyptian religion and its contribution to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Without the Egyptian religion, which was built on Egyptian morality and has served them for thousands of years. Without that religion, Judaism would not exist. Christianity would not exist. The Islam religion would not exist. Remember when Abraham went down into Egypt when he was escaping starvation, when there was a famine, and he went down with his wife Sarah, and there was some kind of a fear there with the Pharaoh. And when the Pharaoh realized that Abraham was Sarah's husband, he was filled with regret. And look, at that time, he had the power. He could have eliminated Abraham. Why he did not eliminate Abraham? It was because of the morality, the spiritual system that he was brought up in, where you treat a stranger with deep respect, which we cannot say today of countries and today's society. But if Abraham was eliminated right then for sure Judaism would not exist. Remember, every time there was a famine, where did Abraham go to? He went down into Egypt. So Egypt, because of its morality, which is religion is built on, and which has served them so well and make them prosperous, that morality allow them to accommodate strangers because they were prosperous. And even Abraham, remember when he went down, he was leaving with more than what he came with. Every time there is some kind of situation like that, Egypt was the place that they went to find some relief because of the generosity of the Egyptian people, or the system that they set up, their religious system that was the guiding light that put a strong morality base within them to treat strangers with respect. And after that, Abraham went out with more than he came in with. And then it was his grandson turn, Jacob. So Jacob, I guess you know the story with Jacob and Joseph, when Joseph went down, when he was sold as a slave. Right then and there, if it wasn't for Egypt, the Judaism would not make it true. Judaism would not be created as we know. Because remember, it's when Joseph went down and secured himself, and he was working in the government of the Pharaoh. That's when his brother who sold him came looking for food, escaping starvation again, came down, and they got what they need, except they got to leave the son. They got to leave one of the son, because Joseph at this point did not trust his brothers. And eventually, you know the story, how it plays out. Joseph sent for his whole family, and they came to live in Egypt. Now, look at that. And they managed to secure the best piece of land in Egypt to raise their animal, become prosperous. So without that kind of setting, because it could go the other way. When Joseph was sold into slavery and the lady accused him of, you know what was happening there, and he went into prison, anything could happen within that setting. He could have lost his life in that setting. And what would become of Judaism? It would not come into being. It was Egypt. When they came down and they see the system that the Egyptians have going there, that's where they get this idea from, of setting up society like that. Remember, Moses, who pulled the Jewish people out of Egypt, Moses himself was an Egyptian. He was brought up in the Egyptian culture. He knows the in and out of the Egyptian culture. He was raised in the Pharaoh's house. Because remember, as a child, he was put in a basket on the Nile. And Pharaoh family take this kid in and raise this kid as one of their own. Do you recognize that? And he have access to all of Egypt in that sense. He have access to the knowledge. He have access to the wisdom. He have access to their religion. He was a part of the ruling class in Egypt. Moses. Look at that. And he's the one who take them out of Egypt. Without that foundation in Egypt to build on, to gain knowledge from, Judaism would not be. I want you to look at something here. Remember, the religion was the government back in those days. And just like today, nobody want to give credit where credit is due. For example, the Americans does not give the British too much credit for their survival, because they got to fight with the British to get their independence and stuff like that. But without the British, would there be any Americans? The Chinese don't want to give the Americans too much credit for the development of their economy and let them become so prosperous. And it's the same thing, the British would not give any credit to the Spanish, and vice versa. The same thing with the Romans. They're not going to give too much credit to the Greek for building their empire like that. And the Greek is not giving too much credit to the Persian. So it's the same thing there. The Jewish that build their religion off the back of the Egyptian does not give the Egyptian religion much credit. And I'm sure if Christianity, if the writings within the Bible was changing a little bit to say they hate and the Jewish people were evil, that would be a lot of bloodshed right there. So you got to give credit where credit is due. And we got to admit, if there is any honesty in this circle, if there's any honesty within the historian view, you gotta admit, when you go through, you will recognize that there's a base for all these things, and one learn from another, and they take from another and they develop into what they become. And just like Christianity take from Judaism, it's the same thing Judaism take from the Egyptian. But why deny it? Why call them pagans and stuff like that? And deep down, why deny it? Why say they're pagans? You see, it's a lack of knowledge right there. Because generation after generation and the forgetfulness of the previous generation, which lead to the separation and the belief that there's no connection there. Because when Christianity came around and went back down into Egypt, they tried to stamp out the Egyptian religion. It was when, well, it was deteriorating ever since the Greek. Now, one could say that Judaism was a child of the Egyptian religion, and Christianity was the great grandchild of the Egyptian religion is Islam. But because the separation after generation, a lot of this history is lost. But now you can go back and put the pieces together. A lot of people will not admit what I'm saying here. But if there's any honesty when you're doing your research and looking back at history and knowing how history is recorded, and realize who give credit and who get credit and who is trying to discredit who, then you can read between the lines and see the truth of what it is. So I go back to saying this. The Egyptian religion has contributed a lot to mankind. It has contributed a lot to all these grandkids of the Egyptian religion. And we're talking about billions of people since the existence of the religion itself. In some form or another, it has affected the world, whether through its architect, its spiritualism, its philosophy, and the wisdom and the knowledge that comes with that. Because remember, if Joseph did not went down when he got sold as a slave, then his brothers and his father would not be in Egypt. And they stayed there a couple of generations and they multiply. So when they were going out of Egypt, there was more than what came in. And they were much richer when they were going out. Just like the first time Abraham came down. Every time they came down, they went out with more than what they bring in. So that's to show you the generosity of the Egyptian. That is to show you the morality system, which is from their religious system that they build their life on, and the way they live was of good quality to accommodate things like this in that time. Remember to bring some clarity and some awareness into your creative space. 10 to 12 deep breaths can get you started. Blessing be with you always.